Good morning. It is 9:48 on November 14th, 2024. This actually will be the last meeting of the Education and Culture Committee this year as we head into the holiday season. I want to thank, since it is our last meeting, I want to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues, council members Albornoz and Mink, and our staff for their partnership. We've had a lot of transition on the ENC committee. Ms. McGuire has headed over to MCPS, and Ms. Cummings has stepped up along with Craig Howard, which we're really happy. And my chief of staff, Michelle Whitaker, who staffed this committee, is now gone to lead another organization. So lots happened, but we've had a great year, and I look forward to a great next year too. And the work isn't stopping, but I just thought it was good to note that. I have a little bit of context here. I thought this was also fun to do. Alongside the Government Operations Committee, we were the first committee to meet in 2024, so yay us. This year we met 31 times between EC and joint committees, and we've spent more than 57 hours in committee. Our longest meeting was 3 hours and 44 minutes. We won't approach that today. This is a good chance to reflect on why we're here and what we're hoping to accomplish. Our goal is to protect oversight, but also shed light on issues that are of concern to the public and make sure that they're informed on these issues. So I know all of us take this responsibility seriously. I do as chair, and just want to really thank my colleagues and staff for making this, in my humble opinion, the best committee. All right, now we are going to talk about today. We have a very important item relating to pedestrian and safety and school bus access for our students. I see this as a kind of a cornerstone in a conversation that's really important and builds on some of the work we've done. A lot of us, I think probably most of us up here, have just helped our kids get to school today. And every day we're trying to make sure it's safe, reliable, and efficient. 99% of the time, we want that to happen 100% of the time. And and we know, and I can speak from personal experience that, like, you always have that feeling like you want your kid to get on the bus or walk safely or bike safely. It's a concern that parents have every day, and we transport 100,000 students on our buses, and many more. The other 60,000 are in cars or walking or biking, and so it's a big challenge and a big operation. And so we're here to talk about the school system, and thank you for our public safety partners here as well. How we're doing on making sure that critical component of getting to school. We were just talking yesterday here at the full council. Getting to school is step one of being able to learn, and we want to make sure it happens safely. So we're going to start with MCPS because that's our mandate, but we have our partners from public safety here as well. We're going to have a more comprehensive discussion next year with our colleagues on the Transportation and Environment Committee, so we can have DOT as well. But I think there's a lot to do here, and so I'm kind of glad that we're breaking it down in the context of what's going on in MCPS and with MCPD today. And we do have, I want to acknowledge our great director of Safe Routes, I always forget your title. He's Vision Zero Coordinator. Thank you. Who's here to answer questions, and other partners realizing this is a overlapping issue. So if Ms. Edwards and Mr. Lewis can come down, I think I see you all from MCPS. There is the way we'll break it up is we'll have you all just make any opening remarks that you want to make, and then I'll have there's some framing questions in the packet. I'll actually turn to council staff first to add any additional framing. And then we will have our public safety partners and/or our Vision Zero coordinator come down as is appropriate. So Colleagues, anything you want to add on this? Okay. Ms. Cummings, what did I not say and that needs to be said?
Thank you, Chair Jawando. I do not have a lot to add to your statement, which was wonderful. But I would just emphasize, as you noted, that student transportation and pedestrian safety and bus access is a team effort among various departments. And MCPS is primarily responsible for designing and operating bus routes, setting walk-shed boundaries, school bus stop placement, and the circulation of vehicles and pedestrians on school property. In the packet today, we've highlighted a couple of the areas that MCPS works closely on, including bus routing and potential areas for collaboration with the Flex Ride system, walkability studies and walkshed updates, and their role in the Safe Streets Act. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and those are the topics we're going to cover. So I guess, Ms. Edwards, do you want to start off?
Good morning, Chair Jawando. Good morning, Councilmember Albornoz, Councilmember Mink. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for having us here. We will share with you and talk to you about the work that we've been doing with Safe Routes in terms of the things in Department of Transportation. Thank you for visiting the bus depot at the beginning of the school year. It was good to have you out and walk around our buses and hear about the work that we do. Some of what you'll hear when I turn the microphone over to Mr. Lewis, the number of students that we transport every day, the measures that we take to really follow COMAR, make sure our students are safe and understand the things that our bus drivers need in order to do that. And so we've done some work over the past couple of years to really be mindful of that, and being mindful that we have students that walk, that ride bikes, that get dropped off, but most of our students do catch our buses. So I want to turn it over to Mr. Lewis to share some more information this morning, and we're happy to engage with you in discussion.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here. Just wanted to give a high-level overview of the great work of MCPS's Department of Transportation. These are facts that we've shared many times before, but again, want to highlight and celebrate the amazing work of the entire department. Our goal every day is making sure that our commitment to ensuring access to education is completed for over 100,000 students that ride our yellow buses. We want to do that through the lenses of safety and also equity, in making sure that our access to education is done for all of our 211 schools within the district, but also serving our non-public schools for students in special education programs. DOT, under my leadership currently, is responsible for designing all of our bus routes and managing all of our employee assignments, from the planning to the implementation of school bus transportation. We have over 2,100 permanent employees working from bus attendant up to our administrative staff, and we have about 200 temporary part-time employees, or our substitutes, that help augment any of our staffing challenges that we may have. We have over 1,500 school buses, which includes currently 234 electric buses. And again, we provide service to more than 230 schools, the 211 within the district and a variety of non-publics that may be in Virginia, the District of Columbia, or neighboring counties in Maryland. On an annual basis, we travel more than 20 million miles, and that averages about 100,000 miles per day. So if we look at that in the grand scheme of things, we move a lot every single day. Our operations include Saturdays and Sundays to support some of our non-publics, but also extracurricular programming for athletics and other kinds of special programs. Our policies and regulations set forth by our Board of Education articulate and govern the transportable areas. So just as a reminder for all of our folks watching, elementary school students are eligible for transportation if they live a mile outside of their home school location. For middle school students, that's 1.5 miles, and for high school students, that's 2 miles. We give or take about 1/10 of a mile if certain conditions exist in order to provide transportation. So that's a high-level overview of the Department of Transportation within MCPS, and I'll turn it back over to Ms. Edwards or the committee.
Anything to add, Ms. Edwards? Okay. Well, I see, and I meant to acknowledge you've got, Mr. Lewis, you've got your whole team here in the back that I met at the depot. Good to see everybody. We were just remarking with Councilmember Albornoz, it is really amazing to see how much happens every day and how many people are being moved, how many of our young people are being moved around. more than our 211 schools, to your point, to other schools that, because of special education services or other parts of the region and different states, it's just a big operation. I do want to ask if council staff had put some framing questions in the packet. I'll give an example, and this might be an area to bring down, some of our other staff. I was just at a community organized pedestrian safety visit with Councilmember Lukey and Senator Zucker at Sherwood High School. We had about 30 parents, community members, and it was right at the let-out time where students are walking, unsafely, unfortunately, across 108 because there's not crosswalks, right? And obviously we have this issue of where state highways conflicts with school walk sheds, and then bus access, and so that's in process with state highways, and we're trying to make sure that kids can get across the street in a safe way to go to 7-Eleven or go to their homes, the kids that are within a mile that are walking home, which is a good bit of those students. It's just an example of one of the many things that we're dealing with. So who are the main people on MCPS side that work with when students are traversing either through, obviously if they get on the bus, we know they're coming, they're dropped off at the bus, they get off in their neighborhood. But who's the main liaison with, whether it be county DOT or state highway, on the walk shed issue to make sure that folks are getting safely to and from? And how is that going?
Sure. Great question. So I would say there's a trifecta of MCPS staff across 3 different offices that work in conjunction with our state and county partners whenever there are challenges or issues that need to be addressed. Our Office of Facilities Management, which has several divisions beneath it, are charged with sort of that footprint mapping and making sure that the landscapes around all of our 211 plus footprints within the district have what they need in terms of ADA access and any other kinds of supplemental safety measures in place to ensure that pedestrian access is where it needs to be. The second would be our system-wide safety and emergency management team. Our school security assistants and our cluster security coordinators are the boots on the ground folks that are able to help us assess as a district what the needs may be. They're there during arrival and dismissal if they're staffed at the school at the secondary levels to help with some of that arrival and dismissal foot traffic, and then enter DOT with the yellow school buses to help operationalize or make recommendations to school staff and administration around what could possibly be done to enhance safety measures, and then help sort of that communication gap or bridge those communications with some of our county and state partners. A great recent example of this was when Northwood High School moved and opened at the Woodward Center off of Old Georgetown Road in North Bethesda, where all of our MCPS offices, in addition to our county partners, including the police and then MCDOT, the county's Department of Transportation, came together, and we were able to make great strides with the support of Councilmember Stewart to ensure that the State Highway Administration understood the needs of the district and were responsive, as that's a state route. So when that trifecta of MCPS offices comes together and we coordinate and collaborate with our county partners, then great things can happen.
I appreciate that. And obviously you mentioned MCPD. There's always the issue of the crossing guard issue. And we talked about this in our EC public safety meeting a little while ago. Do you all, the assessment of, because I'm working with a couple of principals now on this, of when a crossing guard is needed and how they're needed. Maybe I ask MCPD to come down, how that's going. This is my other question. I'll turn to colleagues and get back in the queue. But what is that? What's our current state of play there, and how are we analyzing the need, and how is that being communicated to the board? And I want to acknowledge Grace Rivera Oven from the school board who just joined us. So if we could, whoever wants to start, we could start with what we got today and where we're at.
Sure, I'll start. Similar to what you said, sometimes there is a need that's recognized for where there may need to be a crossing guard. Traffic patterns have changed. There may have been houses that were built, or there's something that's happening in the community. I'll use the Germantown Elementary School, where we've had additional traffic within that area. And so what we do is we do reach out to Captain Jensen and his unit to make them aware. In the past, one of the questions in the packet was just our recruitment and involvement with that. A couple of years ago, when we were missing some of our bus routes, one of the things that we said was if we had more crossing guards on the street, that would be able to help our students who are walking. And we did advertise and send out information for the crossing guard unit. But we do reach out. We have that conversation with them. A crossing guard unit will come out, sometimes meet with the schools and see what is available and what we're able to do, but they actually assign the crossing guards to the location. We make the recommendations where we might see a void, but we don't navigate in terms of where that staff actually go.
Thank
Morning,
you for
Mr.
joining us,
Chair.
Captain Jensen.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
apologies. Warren Jensen, Director of the Traffic Operations Division for the County Police. Ms. Edwards did a great job summing up how we do that. We work in partnership. We have the school traffic safety unit that has a supervisor and a corporal. They physically respond to a scene whenever there's a change or a request, or we think there's going to be a need for a crossing guard or crossing guards at a location. They go out and they evaluate it based on a long list of criteria, which could be age of students, what percentage are walking with parents or walking alone. Like she said, Miss Edwards said, the traffic patterns and any challenges we may be facing there, working with Department of Transportation. So they go through a long list of criteria, and then they make the determination on whether we will assign a crossing guard or crossing guards. The elementary schools have them, some middle schools have them, but usually the high schools are aged out. So that unit makes the decision in conjunction with MCPS.
And who decides the criteria? Who sets that long list of criteria? And when's that last been updated? Like, is that an MCPD generated thing? Was that done with?
I believe it was in partnership with MCPS, and I think it's based on some national criteria. But I can try to figure out how old that list is.
Yeah, just curious about that, because one of the things I hear, and I'm sure my colleagues hear, is like, well, we need a crossing guard, and it always seems a little squishy to people, to the public. I'm sure that what is the threshold for getting that?
Yeah.
And so it would be interesting to know what is that? What are those? Who sets it? And when's the last time it's been updated? Just to have a sense of that.
Absolutely.
From your perspective, both of your perspectives, do you feel that we have enough crossing guards right now to cover the needs and requested needs based on the assessments you've done to this date?
So, as you mentioned, sir, it's one of the number one requests we get. It's a very hot topic. My school safety and the school traffic and safety unit does feel that we have enough right now with the way we're doing it. We are down. We have 7 vacancies right now, which is about average. We're usually 7 to 10 vacancies. We're ongoing recruitment. The unit does advise me they do have enough to get the job done. Obviously, with it being a number one request and safety being a number one concern, we could always use more.
Got it. Okay. I'll pause there and I'll see if colleagues want to jump in. Okay. Start with Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you. Start on a lighter note, as I often like to do. I may hire you, Mr. Lewis and Ms. Edwards, to help coordinate our family's weekend travel for kids, sports, family commitments. Not easy. So you all are clearly the experts. And also, there may be evidence of Councilmember Jawando and I doing the Cupid Shuffle at this year's walk back to school day. So that was a lot of fun. This continues to be a hot topic, and I just so appreciate your all's leadership. I've seen the evolution in my 6 years on this body of the strong partnerships and alliance, both with police as well as transportation and state highway. There's clear evidence of cooperation that had been lacking for a while, but as always, there's opportunities to improve. What continues to, among many things, keep me up at night these days is the higher volume of traffic on local streets, in large part because of ways and means. When there are big traffic congestions, people are being redirected into local communities. I live in Kensington, close to the Beltway, right by the exit for Connecticut Avenue, and there are sadly too often, traffic jams that are directly as a result of those instances. When that happens, when there are significant traffic incidences, how is that communicated to drivers? Is there, I'm sure, but what is the protocol for helping to ensure that drivers know? And is there an opportunity for us to let parents know to expect more traffic congestion for whatever reason, and they may not be following the news? Or we do get the alert, for example, that buses may be late because of that congestion, which is incredibly helpful to parents, you know, for kids that are out there 15, 20, 30 minutes and you don't know why. But is there another opportunity for us to, as part of that alert system, let families know that they should be more vigilant because there may be more cars in their neighborhoods?
So we currently don't have a system-wide alert from the Department of Transportation. We have several other apps in the district that we utilize. You've probably heard about the Remind app and our Connected system. One of the key things that we know that is in front of us is we do need to purchase an end-to-end system that really thinks about the routing, where we need to pick children up. Mr. Lewis talked about our policy that kind of mandates who we pick up, who we transport, how we transport, and in addition, looking at how we build in that component around the communication. Either the bus is running late, the bus is not coming, there may be a substitute that's on the bus, or it may there may be an accident that is affecting major parts of the county. We do reach out to the school principals to make them aware that their children will be coming in late and to kind of ready, to receive them in such a manner. But an upgrade that we definitely have to do is to purchase a system. Our goal is to do some information seeking within the next couple of weeks for a request for information to see what systems are available that would meet that greater need that we have as a district.
That's terrific. And the program of the crossing guards continues to be extraordinary, because those crossing guards are much more than, we've talked about this before, but they're much more than just crossing guards. They get to know these kids, they get to know their families, they ask them how their day was. It's another caring adult that is interacting with these students in a way that's really positive. So, and it's good to hear that we don't have quite as many vacancies. How are we determining how to deploy? Because, oftentimes, I alluded to this before, there are massive construction projects that lead to unusual circumstances that create heightened safety concerns. Are we nimble enough to be able to deploy those folks to where they are needed? And they're needed everywhere, but sometimes in certain circumstances, they're needed even more.
Thank you, sir. We are nimble enough. So the great thing about the unit, like I said, it's a smaller unit at this point, but a sworn police officer can go out almost immediately. Mm-hmm. They work every school day, so they can adapt, they can flex. We'll hear from MCPS or DOT that there is a project or some sort of issue going on or some sort of unusual traffic pattern. They're nimble enough to go out same day, evaluate the need for it, and then get either a sub in place, temporarily use a sworn police officer, or actually physically move some crossing guards around based on the recent evaluations and try to adapt to that issue.
Great. That's all I've got for now. I'll yield back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought the construction thing up. I meant to mention we heard from MCC PTA last night, who brought up the Purple Line as an example of where there has not been great coordination around those mini stops and where the construction is happening. And that the Purple Line themselves, not necessarily our team, but it hasn't been as responsive to the school and student-based concerns around that. And so they've asked us to help create a direct point of contact. Is there anything you can share? And we're happy to help do that as a committee, but have you all had any connection with the folks that are building the Purple Line and to address these issues that are significant from parents and students?
I'm going to queue up from the beginning of the year, if Mr. Lewis can just add. We did have to make some adjustments to many of our bus routes in our Silver Spring area at the beginning of the year because we were seeking information and trying to really think through how to transport going back our children safely as a result of what we were seeing for the Purple Line. We knew that there would be delays as a result of that. And so we were able to communicate that, but it did create some challenges in terms of routing and delivery.
I would say that internally, we're doing everything that we can to reach out to the contractors and the project managers of the Purple Line. I would say, though, that there continue to be some communication gaps in that we're in receipt of information sometimes too late in order to make modifications in a timely manner, meaning communicating to families and to schools that there may be a temporary stop moved. And so we want a better runway of time in order to effectively communicate to our families any kind of change in their transportation. So any support that the council and other agencies can lend in getting our Purple Line partners to be forthcoming and timely in whatever decision making or impacts they're going to have on our roadways and on our sidewalks, that would be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, we'll follow up with that. That's a huge issue. And to Councilmember Alvarez's point, I'm often struck about how large the system is, but at the same time, how local and street by street it is too, right? And as you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I have 4 kids that all go to public school. The bus aide or the bus driver often you have parents exchanging cell phones, which is probably not what you want. It's happening because they just need to be able to let people know, what's going on. And so the urgency of getting that system in place where you can have end-to-end communication, but also so that you can communicate when there are changes. Obviously, you need to know what they are and have time to adjust. I think that's obviously, I know, at the forefront of your mind every day, I'm sure. Turn to Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. Busing, safe routes to school, the transit program is something that all of us get a lot of questions about also. So really glad that we're having this conversation today. Want to give a shout out to Daniel Lee, the MCPS project manager, well, lots of things, but the project manager over at Greencastle, where I've been working with board member Lynn Harris, as well as Daniel and the principal there, and DOT and MCPD on making sure that, as things have moved along with the project, that the crosswalk, is in the right place and the crossing guard is in the right place. And sometimes just that one little, a fence moves. And now the walking pattern has changed for kids. And so to be able to bring everybody together was really important to the point of the conversation that we're having here today, to have all hands on deck, because everybody has a little piece of this and the public doesn't care about that. They just need to see it done. So being able to have everybody together to get that adjusted was really, really helpful. When students are enrolled in programs that are not at their home school, like an immersion program, something like that, can you talk about how, what kind of busing they can expect, what you try to achieve, what's required, and how you all think about that?
So within our policy, how it's currently written, if students are enrolled in programs such as choice programs, transportation really is not a part of, I would call it, the educational package. They can opt to go to the school. However, transportation services are not required. What we have done, I would say, over the last 10 years, we have overextended ourselves as a transportation department, and we have offered service outside of our policy for a couple of reasons. If we go back a few years ago, before there were severe staffing challenges, we had the ability to do so. We also did not have as many students in MCPS at that moment, and we have been growing. In addition, as you know, we've had a lot of different construction and homes in different communities that have come up that have caused us to really reconsider how we do our routes. So we have provided transportation service to many students and programs that we typically would not have provided for. And so for us, it does stretch our resources thin in terms of the things that we must do and have to do when we really think about, Mr. Lewis talked about our special education students within Montgomery County Public Schools, but also the ones that we transport outside of Montgomery County Public Schools. In addition to all of those children who live outside of the walk shed that we have a requirement to be able to transport. So one of the key things that we will definitely have to look at is, what are we doing that's outside of our policy, that's really stretching our resources, and how do we look at what are the either the offsets in terms of service, and really being thoughtful around that. But we also know with that, the consideration just around providing people access to programs. So, the transparency is we've been able to do it, but it has come at a cost for the transportation department and sometimes for our families and kids as well.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't have unlimited resources here, and so we have to make sure that we are meeting our, our mandated. Kids have to be able to get to school to learn, number one. So I understand that. As we are, and I appreciate the way that you have engaged for looking for creative solutions and ways to stretch the budget and get kids into the programs that they want to be in. And as we move forward, continuing to look for ways, if there are other ways that we can be creative to stretch the dollar there, I think that's really going to be important, because this is an equity issue, because there are some families who are more able to get their kids to school, to those choice programs without having access to a school bus. And so, when the more we're not able to do that, that's limiting access to, a subset of kids. And then we have an equity issue. Now, so whatever we can do to continue to expand, and I think it's important to be transparent with the public that we don't have the resources to do everything that we want to be able to do right now. But I would certainly say that making it a priority to think about whether there's other ways for us to be creative, what other paths we can leverage with meetup points and with, partnership with county agencies or whatever the case may be, use of public transportation for our older kids, just I think something to think about, conversations to have, both internally with the county and with the public. There's a benefit there. And then I'll also note, again, as has been said, the crossing guards, one of your top requests, one of our top requests, again, a budget issue. And, given the fact that there is kind of typically 7 to 10 vacancies, we see the recruitment and retention is not easy. Can you talk a little bit about why that is?
Sure, thank you. So, like I said, we do pretty well with our vacancies right now, and every time I ask the unit, they're pretty happy. Like I said, we can always do more. It's a very popular position. It's a very important position. MCPS has been fantastic. We struggled to recruit in recent years. There was a partnership formed before my time as the director up there, and I know they help very much with recruiting, which has helped. I think they do that internally. I don't know their process, but we're pretty much always open. When I talk to the supervisor, the announcement is open, it's ready to go, and we're doing our best to recruit. Some of the crossing guards it's a retirement job, so there's a little bit more turnover. I think age is a factor there. So I think it's a job that has a little bit more turnover. I don't think it's the same recruitment and retention issues like we would face at the sworn level with a younger entry-level worker or a recent college graduate. So I think some of the challenges there are basically just people, it's already their second job. They're going to do a few years, try to grab the benefits and move on to something else or move on to retirement. So like I said, we're doing well and we appreciate MCPS. I think there's probably some things we could do to study, how we can retain them a little bit better, or what we can do on the front end as far as recruiting. But I think overall we're doing a pretty good job.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll lift up just one other piece that I hear a lot from parents, especially at the beginning of a school year. That's not necessarily directly related to the work that you all are doing. You're not wholly responsible or even mostly responsible, but it's interrelated. And so I'm going to lift it up because I would bet that there are parents watching who are thinking about it. And that's at the start of the school year, making sure that the right kids are getting on to the right buses and then going to the right stops. And it seems like there's some variability in how kind of different schools and different principals do it. But especially as you embark at the beginning of the school year, can you talk a little bit about what you're able to do within your scope to assist with that?
I'll start. One of the things we did this year, we released our bus routes earlier. And we put them on the website. We sent it out to our families. We communicated for probably about 3 weeks prior to the start of school, 2 to 3 weeks prior to the start of school, to make everyone aware of where the individual bus stops are. At the school level, as a previous principal, one of the things, and I can speak for elementary and middle, but in the middle school, your goal is get everybody home. The buses don't leave without the children. So you want to make sure that the school is all clear. You do keep a roster of who's on which bus. The bus drivers know their children. They take pride in knowing who's on their bus, and they work really, really closely with them. And the schools really take that effort to make sure that the children get to where they need to be. Unfortunately, there will be times where people may get off at the wrong stop. However, I know our bus drivers have a safety protocol they use at the end of their routes to make sure that no children are on the bus and the things that they do. I'll have Mr. Lewis talk about some things that actually DOT does as well to circumvent, but the school does play a hand in it and knowing their children, how they get to school and how they get home from school to be able to help with that.
So two of our most vulnerable groups of students would be our special needs children and our youngest, our pre-K and Head Start. And so we have very robust protocols for our pre-K and our Head Start students. I'll just start there, in that we recently collaborated with our Office of Early Childhood Education to establish that an adult must be present to take that child at the end of the day. Even beyond that, we're now requiring positive identification for predetermined adults that will greet that child and then take that child home. So that's a huge upgrade from years past, recognizing some of the errors and drop-offs that have occurred previously. And thus far, knock on wood, this year, we're running pretty well. And so that's a huge collaboration with the school, but also brings in that parental element that's much required for these young kids, particularly because they may be getting off at group stops where in the past, if it was a community stop, we released those children to either teenagers, older siblings, but now again, we're requiring adults over the age of 18 to accept those children. Going back to special education students, we have a zero tolerance policy for allowing those students to be let off without an adult present. The only exceptions are for some of our higher functioning students who have parental letters on file, allowing that child to get off the bus at a designated location, and they can get off independently. So with these safety protocols in place, it's unlikely that a student in these two classifications will get off and not be released to the care of a proper adult or parental figure, which is great for us and great for families. But in the event for our general education population, for some of our younger students, it does happen in the afternoons, and our drivers and our attendants, if it's on a special education bus that is serving a general education program, we do sweeps of the buses to make sure that all the students are cleared from the bus. And we do a really good job, I would say, in the first few weeks of school of working with the teachers or the school administrators for our elementary kids, in that if the green bus is supposed to have this many kids, there's some identification at the school level that these are the green bus riders, right? And so at the middle school and secondary level, it's a little bit different. They're a little bit more independent, but we do have students that get on the wrong bus or get off at the wrong bus stop, and we do whatever we have to do to get them back either to the school so they can get a ride home, or to drop them off at an authorized location so they can get home safely.
Great, thank you. Do you have the ability, if needed, to put out a call that goes to all the buses to say, is this student on your bus? And if so, what triggers the use of that?
That's a great question. And yes, we have a two-way radio system for all 7 of our bus depots that coordinate and manage all of our 1,200 routes. So if there's an all call that's made for either a missing student or we need support to get a student to where they need to be because for whatever reason that bus can't do it, we use that communication capacity to get that job done. We also support our police partners if there is a missing student or an all calls required, where we actually get descriptions and we put that out over our two-way radio so that all of our drivers have eyes out on the road and cover a great area and can support our police partners for any of that work as well.
And what constitutes a missing student? And I ask because I've heard from, a couple parents at the beginning of the year whose kid didn't get off the bus. Turned out they were on a different bus, and there was a lot of calls going back and forth to the various bus depots, schools, and at no point was an all call put out for those kids in both those situations. The parents kind of tracked them down through some detective work, and so what constitutes an all call, and does that give us an indication, those stories like that maybe we should lower what's required in order to put out an all call, or what's the solution there?
So I would say the two most common ways that one of our depots gets notification that there may be a missing student is either from the family themselves or from the school, and someone will call the bus depot for that particular route. And then the dispatch team, whoever's responding at the depot level, will initiate the all call. For example, let's say Clopper Mill is missing a student. Clarksburg Depot will likely be the responding depot, and then ask any drivers supporting the Clopper Mill dismissal, do you have so-and-so student on board, or this description of the student, do you have the student on board? If for whatever reason they don't have the student on board, then it becomes a greater search. Anyone have the student on board outside of just the Clopper Mill buses. And we've had a great success in identifying or locating students, but 99% of the time they're either at daycare or an after-school activity, and the parents just maybe forgot that that's what the day of the week was for that kid.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly haven't heard of any, knock on wood, we always find the kids. And that's a thing for parents to know. But also, we want to avoid parents being scared for 2 hours or whatever the case may be. And so, thinking about what's the moment where, and what does it take to be worth just putting out a call? Do you have this kid on the bus? If that would solve most of these in 5 minutes instead of a lot of back and forth, maybe it would be worth it to initiate those. I have a lower bar for initiating those, but I'm happy to follow up with you with some of the details of those cases, so you all can think about how that fits into the larger picture. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I know it's one of those things where when you're transporting so many students, there's a lot of opportunity for case study and how do we improve. I'll give you another one since we're going down this path. That I've witnessed with my kids and with other students, and I've heard from families on this, the stopping and starting of the bus. So I'm sure there's a policy on this. I'd love for you to state it, but I have seen with my own eyes, a bus driver pull up to a community stop, where multiple kids are getting on. And then as kids are once they're on the bus but still walking, pull off at a relatively high rate of speed, which I'm assuming is not what they're supposed to do, but I don't know. And I also have heard from parents where, a kid has fallen or, gotten caught off guard from the acceleration. What is the policy? How do you train that? And just as I often like to say, for the millions watching at home, if a parent has a concern about that, what should they do?
So first, I'd like to say that this is a shared responsibility of families and MCPS. We ask that all of our families, obviously the students, to be at the bus stops at least 5 minutes before their scheduled time. The reason for that, it helps create safer conditions for when the bus approaches the bus stop. The bus operator has a better vantage point, has a better lens on what the surroundings are as they approach a stop, whether it be for one student or 50 students. And so if most of the kids are waiting there, then it creates an organized fashion for being able to get on the school bus much, much safer. Our policy is that we wait until all the students are seated on the bus, but unfortunately, because we run such a tight schedule and most of our general education buses are serving 3 or 4 schools, it may be that we have to close those doors to get the bulk of the students that were there on time to class. We serve breakfast in many of our schools, so we want to make sure that the students get to their school early so they can enjoy their meals, but also have time to meet with teachers and pursue their academic excellence. So if a bus operator sees that there are students running, we also don't want to make an unsafe situation, and so it may be the safer option to actually close those doors and continue on. In other cases, it may be the bus will remain there and allow those students to get on the bus. It's all relative, and unfortunately there's no solid answer, but the policy is that the students should be there at least 5 minutes before the bus, and the bus operator should not be leaving that bus stop until all students have been seated on the bus.
All right, you kind of answered a question I didn't ask, but it's an important question. So be there 5 minutes before, that is the policy. If not, you have the potential of not being, if you're running down the street, you might get left because the schedules are tight. But you also said, just want to be clear, if you're there and you're getting on the bus should not move until students are seated, correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You're correct.
So if that's happening, that's a violation of policy, and you would want to know about that so that that could be corrected, because that's obviously a safety concern.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the parent would do what if they had that concern? They would call the depot or tell their principal. What's the right way to do that?
We'd like for them to call the depot so that they don't have to tell the principal. It's better if it comes directly to us.
Okay, got it. Great. And that would be, I think, would that be a general point of view? If you had any concern with the bus or the driver or the route, like is that the way to go to bring that up?
If there are concerns or issues about a student's transportation, the appropriate depot, based on the assigned route number, would be the best first contact for families. And both our bus attendants and our bus operators are bound by our internal disciplinary standards, which is much more robust than many other districts around. We have a codified system of disciplinary where we can assess and determine the appropriate course of action based on the infraction or the violation.
Yeah. And you also brought up the other side of the coin, the tension of the stress that many drivers are under to get to places on time. And I can tell you another thing that's happening that needs to be coordinated in other parts of MCPS is a student is not late if they arrive on an MCPS bus, even if they arrive late. Is that correct? That's my understanding of the policy.
I am not sure about that. We'd have to follow up on that.
That's my understanding of the policy of what I've been told. But what I have seen is, because of the way attendance is taken, we have parents that receive your student has been marked absent notifications, which is automated, but they were put on a bus. And again, we're a big community. We talked about all the many reasons they could be late. And so, one, I think we need to firm up that policy, and two, have better communication at the school level of, because obviously if you have to go back, and a lot of parents might not even know. And so you could have a student that, if it happens a few times a year, they could have 3 or 4 absences or 3 or 4 tardies that were not attributed to them. So that's just something that I've heard from some folks on as well. Pre-K transportation. So you mentioned pre-K. For our pre-K programs, what is the transportation situation right now?
So right now, transportation is sort of the end user of the information from our enrollment and our pre-K office. And so wherever there may be seats available, if there's over enrollment at one school, we will transport students to the best of our ability. And so as of right now, we have pre-K established in a variety of our schools. And some of those students are local, meaning they feed into that home school, whereas others are what we would call out of area. And so those examples are likely in cases of over-enrollment where, let's take, for example, Washington Grove Elementary School may be over-enrolled. And so we as transportation work with our pre-K office to help determine some of the next best options for schools that may be somewhat close by. But we have to balance, obviously, where the student resides and then where the placement may be, with an understanding with the family that this may be a longer ride than normal because this is not a part of their traditional articulation pattern for a normal enrollment. So we do what we can and make many strides to transport all of our pre-K and Head Start students to the next closest school if it is not their home school. But again, that just places additional resource constraints on our already tight resources.
Got it. That's what's supposed to be happening. Obviously, it could be in the attendance issue could be another issue there, depending on how far the trip is. But okay, that's something I think to just keep an eye on. I have one more question, and then we'll move on to our kind of walk shed part of the topic. So, one of the things that we know that MCDOT is working on the reimagining their stops. They're working on Ride on Flex. And demand service. How if in any way are you all coordinating with them to, realizing our students, particularly our older students, some of them take public transportation, to the extent, what kind of coordination is going on with them and how if at all does that impact your bus routing, and do you expect that to change even more? Come on up, yeah. I'm always good if I can ask a question, I get a new person to come
start.
up. Yeah, if you introduce. Oh, go ahead. Start.
Oh,
with
so
that.
many of the programs that we spoke about earlier, after school activities, during the day, our athletics, our students, our high school students utilize our school transportation services for that. We have not had the opportunity to really collaborate at the level around some of the different opportunities for students to catch ride-on buses with our schools. One area that we did take a look at was the opening
Metro bus.
Was Woodward, when Northwood went to Woodward, because we knew we were bringing students outside of their community into a different community. So we wanted them to have the same level of experiences that they would have there. But because we offer two very different transportation services, it was difficult to line up the timing of some of the buses that would come through Ride On or the different resources through MCDOT. So we do the transportation for our students within our secondary schools at this time.
Sure. If you introduce yourself.
Phil McLaughlin, MCDOT with Ride On. So Dana and I and Michael got together yesterday a little bit to talk about Ride On Reimagine. As you're familiar, we have a Ride On Flex program. This is demand response. We have 2 geofence zones, one in Wheaton, Lemont, one in Rockville. Ride On Reimagine makes the recommendation to significantly grow that program from two flex zones to 19 flex zones. We're still several years away. There's buses to be purchased. There's budgets to be set. One of the things that we talked about with MCPS was making sure that when we finalize what these geofence zones look like, we have MCPS at the table to make sure that we're cognizant of the potential use of this service for students. The 2 flex zones we have today, there are students who use them. It's not a significantly high number. In Wheaton, Glenmont, there's about 5 to 7 students a day. I shouldn't say students, people who are accessing Wheaton and Einstein. We assume they're students. They may be, they may work there. About 5 to 7 in Rockville. On average, 2 to 4 a day use it. But Rockville's just a midday service, so the opportunity to use it would really be for those meal breaks at Richard Montgomery. The program is still recovering from COVID. We really got off to a good start in 2019 through the beginning of COVID, March of 2020. We didn't run the service for a pretty significant period during COVID because of the social distancing, and these are smaller vehicles. And we have not gone back to the original ridership levels that we had that first year. It's maturing each month, but at a pretty slow pace.
I appreciate that, and obviously that you'll have to factor that into the expansion plans and what that looks like. And good to hear that you'll be coordinating. I think one of the things I'm always hearing today and thinking about is you're stretched, right? DOT, the MCPS DOT is stretched. You're doing a lot. How can we leverage other transportation that we know students are accessing that we don't know about, or how can we do that in a more coordinated way? I think is a real project for you, for us, to think about, particularly for our older students, that could be a way of cost savings. We did a lot of work at the council to make Ride On free, right? For our seniors and for students. But so, great, yay. But how can we double tap on that or make it even more effective by having a better level of coordination and integrating that into our overall transportation plan? And that would provide, even if you just started with the high schools or pilot at a high school, I feel like you could get to a level of granularity in a universe of 25 high schools where that's probably most likely to be happening. Middle school too, but let's start somewhere to figure out at a time when Ride On is reimagining, and I think we should bring Metro Bus into this too, because sometimes their routes are preferable. There should be a conversation of how do we do that? Because we know there's not a ton of money, to Councilmember Mink's point of to expand, and you were actually talking about reducing service potentially, you were just saying it in a very nice way, but reevaluating our standards of who gets bus service, that means the less service. So how do we, so can you speak to that? Do you agree? I mean, is that too complicated? And, I just think it seems like we should be doing that.
So we do agree, and like Phil shared, in terms of the level of collaboration, and really having a seat at the table at the inception of the project, to be able to look at where the inroads definitely might be, whether it is a supportive measure such as Phil described during the day, during the lunch hour when children, especially at the high school, are going out for open lunch, or even thinking about how families access buildings where they need to come for conferences or IEP meetings, if that is available to them. There does need to be deeper work done around exactly what you're talking about, Councilmember Jawando, in thinking about where is the intersect, if any, between the two programs. The part that we do have to kind of wrestle with there, and I go back to, is Mr. Lewis talked about the extent of what we run and how we run it, and really digging into, as we do this intersection, making sure we're not creating inequitable situations of who's actually on our buses and then who's actually on, county buses. So we do have an opportunity to do that. We welcome the opportunity to be able to do it on a more frequent, consistent basis.
Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for putting a fine point on that. I appreciate it. And I'll say again that I think, really the priority needs to be looking for more flexibilities, because the more limits we put in, the less equitable it's going to be. And acknowledging that we have to work, being transparent with the public, that we have to work, within the bounds of budget realities. But the effort has to be to expand who we're including, or we're going to have those equity issues. As an example of that, busing for magnet programs. My understanding, so this came from an example that came from a constituent who lives in Bentley Park, and her kid takes a magnet bus, has to cross Route 29 to get to Burtonsville Elementary School. And there's a number of kids who are in, the Bentley Park area who then have to cross 29 to get there. And they have asked for there to be a magnet bus stop on the Bentley Park side where they live, but we're told that for the magnet stops, those have to be at existing MCPS buildings. So I wondered if that is accurate, why that would be the case, if that is one of those areas that could be an area where we could be looking for creating more flexibility in order to be able to better serve more people.
So in our policies for magnet choice and immersion transportation, they have a differentiated level of service. And so what we use for transportation programming are central stops. These central stops are supposed to be at schools or other government facilities. So the Up County building in Germantown would be an example where we do have a central stop for several of our magnet programs. Knowing this area and the construction for the new Burtonsville Elementary School, we are looking in the future to move this central stop from the existing Burtonsville site off of 198 into the Bentley Park community, so it is more accessible. However, some of the challenges obviously are the ongoing school construction and such, and then working with MCPD when we have a larger walk shed for the new Burtonsville site, and how bus traffic and other vehicular traffic is going to come and go from these areas. And so one of the challenges for our magnet transportation programming is that the routes are already long, because we're taking students outside of their home school areas in most cases. And so the more stops that we add, then the longer the ride times are going to be for our students. And so what we're also trying to balance is that ride time. So again, the more stops we add, the longer the ride time. And a lot of these programs for elementary school levels, we're trying to keep that balance of about an hour. And so again, if we have two stops that are somewhat close by to each other, then it's just going to add significant time, even just crossing 198. I would also add, Councilmember Mink, that part of our magnet transportation programming is the responsibility of the parent and or the family to get those students to those central stops so that they have access to those transportation locations.
Right, and that would be that equity issue that we're talking about, because there are families that have more ability to do that than not. So the more flexibility we're able to have on our end to make that easier is going to be really, really important. Is there space within the policy to be able to have flexibility depending on for special situations. For example, Burtonsville Elementary School has 0 walkers. There are 0 walkers to that school because there is no way to walk safely to that school. I'm sure that you're familiar with their unusual setup with the long driveway being behind the shopping center area back there. And so the parents have really developed a remarkable system, in coordination with the school to help, the drop-off area be safe with all the cars and so on. But every kid who's getting on that magnet bus as well is being driven to Burtonsville Elementary School. So they could eliminate that stop and have the stop be on the side where everybody lives. So it wouldn't add any extra time in this situation. So is there, and there may be other examples of that, but is there space within the policy for you all to kind of apply some, common sense to unusual situations?
The one thing I'll say is earlier I talked about constraints within just kind of what we're doing in the overextension. So when we're providing transportation for magnet programs or programs we shouldn't be providing transportation for, but we have because it's a program where either people have advocated very strongly for it to happen or it is a distinct program within the district. We try to stick to what's there. When we hear about recommendations such as what you're making, we do have to go back and take a look. When we take a look, sometimes we're not able to do it because it's almost like a domino effect with some things. One thing impacts another, whether it be the time, it may be a group of students in terms of where they're picked up, where they're not picked up. So I would say we always look at any recommendations that come our way. Sometimes we're not able to accommodate them, especially with this level of specialized transportation, but we try to communicate that information. And so I do want to applaud the team because even as we start the school year, we start off just moving everybody, but then they really get very meticulous each and every week in trying to finite and smooth out some of the bumps that are there. So again, we can take your recommendation that someone is making, we take all of them, but we are also very mindful again of who will it advantage and who will it disadvantage in the process. And then if we do this, does that mean that we can't do something else for another group of children that are riding possibly with another route?
If that is the consideration, then yeah, I would love for you to take a look at this because literally every single student who's getting on that bus is being driven by their parents or a neighbor across the street there. And so who we're disadvantaging is the kids whose parents can't do that. And I understand that this is already something that is outside the bounds of the MCPS policy area, and that you have the policy because we have limited resources. I don't want to tell you to do things that you are unable to do. But if budget was not an issue, right? If we all had what we wish we could have, right? We would wish that we would be able to have convenient busing available where needed so that all kids can have access to all of the choice programs, right? That would be the ideal world with an unlimited budget. That would be the most equitable place that we could be. And so, limiting the policy to say that we are not responsible for, or, that we're not going to provide busing for these choice programs would be moving back in where we are. That would be, less equitable, restricting access. And, we can't guarantee, we just don't have capacity to guarantee it. But I would think that we'd want our policy to be, once we check the box and everything that we have to do, we're going to be as creative and as flexible as we can to try to find the way to maximize access for all of our students. And so I would think that the fewer limitations we have on how we can be flexible there, the better. We want to be able to serve more students. We want to maintain accurate expectations, so we can't promise it, but we want to be continuing to increase access. And so this is again an example of that. And so I hope that that's something you can take into consideration.
And Councilmember, if I could just one more thing to add,
of course,
because we are definitely in agreement with you. One thing Mr. Lewis alluded to earlier, our programs are in direct connection with our transportation services. And we have a responsibility as a district to really think about our programs and the equitable access of our programs and where they're located within the county. And so we have that opportunity in front of us to be really thoughtful around that. And that drives the transportation. Pre-K is a big one. We have a driver from the state. It's the right thing to do. I'm a firm believer in pre-K because it's one of the biggest equity levers that we can give children going into school as well as adulthood. And so we really have to look at how we provide that program and looking at the transportation. But our programs do drive our transportation. And what we've been seeing over the past couple of years, the transportation has been driven into the program. And so we kind of need to turn the corner on that so that everything that you and I are saying is not the reality anymore. So as a district, we do have to look at equitable access and distribution of our programs.
Appreciate it.
And just to be additive for one moment, Councilmember Mink, one of the things that we undertake every year, and I think I shared this last year with this committee, we do annual route reviews for all of our clusters, which also includes our magnet choice and immersion programs. So shortly here, and one of my colleagues, Ms. Bailey, in the back leads our routing office. We're going to do an immersive, no pun intended, route review of all of our magnet choice and immersion programs. And so one of those things will be looking at sites, for example, like the future Crown site. What access are we going to give students that are enrolled in choice programs once that school is established? And for example, again, Burtonsville. And so when they are in their new site, that to me seems like the logical place to move the central stop for all of the choice magnet and immersion routes that utilize Burtonsville as their central stop. So we do undertake that every year. Oh, and I'm joined by Ms. Bailey right now.
Thank you. Hi, Ms. Bailey. It's good to see you again. And
good to see you as well.
yeah, and part of the great team at the transportation, making an MCPS transportation. And I actually had a question related to routing, so I said might as well bring you down. But thank you. I do want to say, I don't know if Ms. Edwards you were probably a principal, but I filed a federal civil rights complaint against the school system because of the immersion programs before I was a council member, because they were not accessible and open to all students, right? And it wasn't just immersion, it was the magnet. And MCPS has made, this was about 10 years ago, has made big improvements in who gets screened for magnet, how we have changed the sibling preference, just a whole bunch of things around who gets in the program to make it more equitable. And so I want to give MCPS credit for that because that's been a huge improvement. However, this issue of transportation continues to be a way that it's not as equitable because the whole point of them and where they are, if you're in the Chinese immersion program and you live in Long Branch, or if you live in East Cat, it's hard to get there. And so where the stop is and what time it gets there, that matters a lot. If there is a stop available, and the ability of people who don't have a car, we know from our transit studies, DOT knows, they've told us who rides public transit. It's people who have less income. It's more of our communities of color. And so we know more of our immigrant communities. So we have to your point, the program where they are in making them open and accessible, the transportation is a critical component to that. And so as you're doing the review, particularly of those programs, because it's a community school, it's a lot more easier to manage. But for programs where it's a lottery base or it's special, but we tried to open the aperture to get more students in, the transportation equity piece has to be an equal part of that, and has to be thought about almost at the same time. And I know you're trying to do that, but I just wanted to lift up. And I think Councilmember Mink has given a very on the ground district level, her district example of a way that needs to happen. The one question I just had on routing is what route, could you give us an example of what significant changes or updates to the routes this year? Have there been any? Do you see any on the horizon? You mentioned a couple of thoughts, Mr. Lewis, but I just wanted to ask if, and just talk about how that process goes a little bit.
Good morning again. Well, the significant change that I have seen this school
year. And what are your
year,
challenges in the process too?
Okay.
Yeah.
The challenges and the changes that I have seen this school year so far is the amount of students that we are routing for. It seems to be on the uprise in the county. And on top of it, the programs that we serve are not in every school. And with that being said, it makes it a little bit difficult at times to route students, especially when it comes to the special needs students. That's particularly what my office does. We route the special ed students as well as we design the magnet routes. So when it comes to the special ed programs, which are not in every school, it makes it difficult for us to ensure a good ride time. Sometimes the ride times will be a little longer because of where you live versus where the program is. We try our best to make every route as good as possible. Sometimes that's just not the case, depending on the location. We do route geographical. So when it comes to if we have an abundance of students in the same location, of course it's going to be a little longer because of the amount of students in that area going to that same program at that school. And not only one program. So say, for instance, we have schools that have 2 and 3 programs. We will route all of the students in that geographic area to that school on that one school bus, not on 3 different school buses because it has 3 different programs. So that's another thing that I don't think the public really understands when it comes to the ride times, and some people just think that it's just for their students as well, and it's unfortunate, but at the same time we try our best to do.
I really appreciate, and I'm glad you came up to say that. I think one of the things my colleagues on this committee know, I think we've been trying to do collectively, and I've certainly been trying to do, is to make sure the public and our colleagues understand the scale and scope of what you're doing every day. The fact that you have 2,000, you have 1/5 of the county government employees just in transportation. Like, you have over 2,000 people that are just doing this every day. There's 10,000 people in all of county government. Just to get, you're 100,000 people, that you're transporting. It's a massive operation, but it's also super hyper local because it's like you're taking our precious kids. So, and I know it's very hard. So thank you for what you're doing. And the other thing that is impacting you for sure, we have a higher level of special education identification. So I'm assuming there's a commensurate number. If you saw a chart of like special ed identification going up, we just had a briefing about this earlier this week, the transportation routes would go up at the same time. And that's just something that I think people don't think about, because we do offer a level of service for special ed students on transportation that I don't know if it's unique, but maybe you can speak to that. But I know it's a high level. Do other districts do what we do?
Sure. So just to touch on the first point that you made, yes, we've seen a 3% increase in students with transportation as a related service in their IEPs from last school year to this school year, which
3% in 1
3%, which is about 200 students more. And so if we think about the geography of our district, those students could be enrolled in a variety of schools in different places. And so it's significant because that takes obviously more resources for us to be able to transport. And the responsibility, the legal responsibilities upon MCPS are in the codified in the IEPs for those students. So if transportation is identified as a related service, then we do provide a door-to-door service for those students enrolled in the programs. And so to Ms. Bailey's point, we may have Einstein High School as a great example, has at least half a dozen programs for special education. We don't route each bus for that discrete program. We route all of the students that are enrolled at Einstein on our special education buses because that makes more economic and efficient sense for us to do that. So as much as we would like to do door-to-door, we want to remind our families watching out there that there may be other students on the bus and your ride times may vary based on the enrollment for that special program at that particular school.
Really appreciate that. So I think we've talked a lot about bus routes. So we're going to transition a little bit here to the second and final topic, the walkability studies and the walkshed updates. Is there any framing from council staff? I want to get Mr. Kenny involved here. Anything you want to say on this?
Sure. So just to tee this up briefly, MCDOT conducts walkability studies around the walk sheds of schools. So you heard MCPS reference those walk sheds earlier. These are areas near the school that are not eligible for bus service, and with the assumption that a lot of those students are going to be walking. So MCDOT will go out and conduct these analyses. They'll study the area, identify safety concerns, whether those be just traffic crash zones where traffic safety and broadly is an issue, and then specifically gaps in the sidewalk network, gaps where crosswalks or other traffic calming devices might be needed. So they'll do that kind of engineering technical study, and all through that process are engaging with parents, with principals, with school leaders in the walk sheds of these schools to determine whether they're on base and what other what they might be missing. I've attended a couple of these meetings. They're fascinating. Turns out you can do all the engineering studies you want, but parents know kind of the areas that are most dangerous and are able to add that always. So these are interesting processes. And then they'll come out with a list of recommendations of constructed improvements that need to be made. And those improvements are then made obviously on a cost availability basis, with through the sidewalk program and through the pedestrian safety program and the CIP. So those improvements are constructed. Oftentimes, we've seen that there's some barriers to those constructed improvements being made due to, for instance, residents being concerned about trees being knocked down to build sidewalks, and there are lots of issues that were highlighted as part of the pedestrian master plan last year that apply here as well, with barriers to those constructed improvements. But the study and the outreach themselves are really where MCPS's involvement comes in, and they're partners in that effort.
Thank you, Mr. Kinney. So just, I guess, to our MCPS and MCPD or any partners, how do we feel that this is going? I know obviously there could always be more money. One of the things that's always been a priority for me since I've been on the council is to increase the amount of money that's going to safe routes to schools. And thank you, Mr. Holland, our Vision Zero coordinator, coming down, so that we can move more quickly with these assessments and get more done. Because as we said, in addition to the 100,000 students we transport by bus, we got to focus on, there's thousands of students that walk and bike and roll to school. And Councilmember Alvarez left because he knew I was going to bring up the cha-cha slide that we did on walk and bike to roll again. So this is where the MCPS MC data partnership is really important. And your role, MCPS, in helping determine the boundaries in which students can reasonably walk to school. So could you talk a little bit about how that's going? And then Mr. Holland obviously chime in, but who are the main people that, I'm assuming it's someone in your shop that is Mr. Lewis, that's kind of helping determine the walk shed and who should be in it and how we think it's going and where improvements need to be made, or maybe I'm wrong, but.
So we have a team under Ms. Bailey who works in our routing software, and they partner with our internal Office of Facilities Management, our capital planning team, specifically our GIS coordinator, John Solomon.
What is that acronym?
Geographic Information Systems.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Our GIS coordinator.
GIS, got it. Okay.
Yeah, GIS coordinator, Mr. Solomon, and he liaises actually with our county planners. And so when we have new schools or
At the Park and Planning Commission?
I believe so.
Okay.
With a memorandum of understanding. And from what I understand, when we have new schools or we have shifts and or new communities within the boundaries that may be walkers, there's a collaboration between facilities, the county government, and then my shop comes into play to overlay all of those layers on our mapping systems to determine what the walk shed looks like, and if there are changes to eligible ridership, that we account for those bus routes in our design phase.
So it's kind of like everyone's doing their little part, and who makes the final decision? Who has the is there someone that has a, or is it all collaborative and it always works well? Like who's the bottom line on it?
It's collaborative. I think there's sometimes, as I'm sorry,
Mr.
I think,
Kinney.
There's vying in different spaces for different things based on what we've heard and what we're looking at for the data. So I can't necessarily say it's one person over another that really wins out in the situation.
And how often? So this group comes together through MOU. Like it's like when something new happens or when an issue is raised, or is there some sort of a yearly or quarterly meeting that happens?
So this is typically driven if there's a new school construction and or a boundary change, right? And so as we look to boundary studies,
So that'll happen again.
right, our team with capital planning will come together and look at any of the zones that may be projected to be moved. And then the GIS team plus members of my team will come together and help determine then what the walk areas may be, what transportation with yellow school buses may look like in any of the scenarios that are given.
And some of the work, from my understanding over the past couple of years, we have not been as much on the front end of some of the construction projects. Our goal moving forward is to be on the front end and do more of the pre-planning. Some of our recent projects, we have some projects coming up at Lelick. That's a big one, where we are really working together. We have the MOU with Parks and Planning, but really looking at trying to look at that crosswalk, the bus loop that's there, how parents are coming in and out of the building. So I do think there are opportunities to make the collaboration a lot stronger than what it has been.
Sounds like it needs a little more form and structure.
It does, and I'll say this: the transition over the years in facilities. We've had a transition in facilities. We've had work that we've done together across the different agencies that are here. We do have schools, as you know, that we do construction with every year. Our boundary study is coming up. One of the commitments that we definitely have because of that, because we're looking at 3 different schools through that particular boundary study, is how are our partners at the table with us from the very beginning on our internal steering committee as we think through those different components, and it's not an add-on at the end.
Well, I'm going to suggest, since we do have the opportunity of we have a lot of new schools getting ready to open or opened, and we have the boundary change that folks, the board is going to be taking. Maybe we can form a lot. Mr. Holland, I'm looking at you too. I feel like this is an opportunity. I sit on Planning, Housing, and Parks, which is over the planning board, and then obviously this is education. Obviously DOT is a part of it, public safety. Like we almost have every committee that touches this super important issue of how do our kids get to and from school safe. I do think MCPS has a unique role, and at the end of the day, if I'm a parent, I want to know what you're doing to make sure that my student is getting to and from. But it might be an opportunity in this boundary change process, since it's going to be a lot of this happening, to have a process that is a little more formalized, and that could maybe serve as a model going forward. I see you nodding, but we're happy to work with you online to help, and maybe Mr. Holland can help be a part of that too.
Yes, we'll have, as I shared, we will have a steering committee. Okay. Mr. Holland didn't know it, but he'll have a seat at the table, okay. Which is usually how it happens. He just says yes if I ask. So he'll have a seat at the table, and also in consideration of anyone else that we need to bring into that process.
Awesome.
And I do want to add that in 2 recent school openings, there has been an amazing collaboration in order to get the safe routes to school up to the standards that we all want, both as staff, but also to make sure our families have what they need. And those examples would be Woodland Elementary School, as their entire traffic pattern changed when they went back to their site on Luzerne Avenue, whereas we used the Brookville roadside, and there was a lot of coordination with MCDOT to get crosswalks and other safety apparatus up to support all the student walkers in that part of Silver Spring. And the other example more recently is Burnt Mills Elementary School, when we moved their site to Prelude Drives off of 29, and there was tremendous coordination with MCDOT to make sure that all of the walkers in that community from Oakleaf, et cetera, had safe access to make sure that they got to Burnt Mills safely and then home.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Holland, do you have anything you want to add since you just joined us?
Well, good morning, everyone. Wade Holland with the County Executive's Office, Vision Zero Coordinator. Just to add to that, one of the things that we do look at is, sorry, I don't look at, but DOT looks at as part of the walkability studies is that kind of comprehensive look at what's the school site, what's the access, where are the crossing guards, what does the overall flow in that neighborhood look like for the walkability study. So it does really give us that good, comprehensive, high-level look at what what that community really looks like going to or from school every day. MCDOT is currently about halfway done with what they call their Phase 2 walkability audits. There was a Phase 1 many years ago that looked at the frontage of the school, so that roadway right in front of that school. These look at the entire walk sheds. MCDOT does about between 10 to 15 schools a year. So I said we're just about over halfway done with those reviews. And the reviews are kind of staggered out because you don't want to have a review and not be able to build any of those recommendations within a couple of years. If you have a report you did 5 or 10 years ago, usually that means you probably have to go back and refresh it. So that's why they kind of stagger between doing the review, doing the study, and then trying to get some of those studies into the pipeline so they can be built out. As Councilmember Jawando mentioned, the additional funding for sidewalks has really made a difference in terms of actually building out some of those missing sidewalk recommendations that were pretty much passed over in the past because they were either had to go through the sidewalk review process or wouldn't have a funding mechanism to make that happen.
Appreciate that. Do you guys have any questions on this? No? Good? Yes? Just a comment. Okay. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thanks. Just a comment. I know we've talked about this again before, but sometimes the greatest oppositions to these projects comes from some of the immediate neighbors within those communities, which can really make things difficult. And so I know you all have been working with DOT, but I would also encourage you to work with district council members in particular who have relationships oftentimes and that can really help facilitate some of these concerns, and really engaging MCCPTA as well, and the board, because I think you all shouldn't be alone in having to make this case when it is so important. These should be handled a little bit differently than other traditional sidewalk projects because of how important they are, and would love to see more of that. Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. Councilmember Mink.
Also could not agree more with that. Yeah, we really want to be your partners in this. And, some of those conversations with community members can be challenging. And sometimes it is because there's a misunderstanding about the differences between how much weight they really carry in these conversations for safe routes to school versus the sidewalks by request. It's just two different buckets with two different processes and two different funding streams. And, and that can be understandably confusing. And so we're happy to help to facilitate those conversations. A suggestion that as you're getting the word out to the community and hopefully to us as well so we can support, but sending home, asking the principal to send home notices to all of the families, including families whose kids ride the buses, because they might be interested in switching to becoming walkers when they find out that there is a new, safer route to school. And so we want to make sure that we are routing the notifications to them as well to engage in the conversation and to think about what they want to see as well. But making sure that there is clarity that Safe Routes to School is a funded program with the urging of the community. We have put it into the budget a while ago, again, at the urging of the community. And so this is something that is coming to all of our schools over time. And we are, of course, glad to have community input about how those, implementation where it makes sense, whether, should it be on this side of the road or that side of the road? And we're trying to avoid this tree and just seeing what's possible so we can make each of the details of this as strong as possible. And I appreciate the work of, MCPS and DOT and working to be responsive to those concerns as much as is possible, but that's really the extent. This is not, we want neighbors to know and to be part of the process of Safe Routes to School coming, but where they can weigh in on whether or not a sidewalk comes, that's on the request side, which is a different bucket. And so we're glad to help with those conversations. And one of the pieces that I've seen is making sure that we are getting the word out to those families who might choose to become walkers as well.
Really good point. Just a quick question. The packet had this in there, and I do want to ask them because I was wondering too. So for the collision site reviews that are happening under the Safe Streets Act that we all supported, what's the MCPS role during that process? How is that working out? And then I want to hear from MCPD too. But.
So this is actually really exciting work. We were part of this when the council approved this bill last year, and this is actually my wheelhouse within transportation.
All right, we teed you up. Being
the former supervisor of our safety and training team. And so MCPS has a shared responsibility, and we established an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with our county partners, MCPD and MCDOT, in that the information sharing and the collection of any of the crash reports that MCPD refers to us and the information that we refer back to the whole committee can be shared. And so how we've mechanized this internally within MCPS is we have that trifecta that I mentioned before. We have our Office of Facilities Management, we have our System-Wide Safety and Emergency Management, and my department, Transportation, coming together monthly to review the crash reports that are referred to us by MCPD. Thus far, we've received 12 crash reports that meet the threshold of the bill requirements, and then it's incumbent upon us to review internally what are the infrastructure reviews required that we as MCPS can put forward and form recommendations for. And so then enter our partnership with both MCPD and MCDOT. We have quarterly meetings that I'll let Mr. Holland speak to, in that we will then provide any of the updates or recommendations that we have determined in-house to the larger group to see if there's more widespread collaboration that's either required or warranted under the bill.
And before we turn to Mr. Holland or MCPD, so that's great to hear. I'm glad that's happening, and I can tell it seems like it's helpful. Have there been any things that you've changed or adjusted as a result of these yet? And then also, it would be great. I don't know if this is already happening. I haven't seen it if it has, but like if those the outcome of those meetings or reports could be shared with council and with, I'm assuming the school board would want them too, and to know kind of. So I know this is new; it's just happening. But so if you could answer those two questions.
So to answer the first question, it seems to me that the first dozen that we've received from our partners at MCPD are really just situational awareness challenges from the folks that have been involved in some of these crashes. And so meaning it was either they were distracted by texting, and in one instance some personal grooming, and then decided to crash their vehicle into something. Those are what we've seen thus far. Yeah. I'm not saying that those are good things, but it's better than rising to the level of where we need to actually do some sort of
issue
exactly
or something like that.
Or a facility footprint review, and then things of that nature. So I'm hoping that continues to just either sustain or decrease in terms of the types of cases that have been referred to us. And then to the second part, happily we'll share, but I'll let Mr. Holland speak to that as he's coordinating our quarterly meetings.
Good.
Yes, as mentioned, we do have the memorandum of understanding about who's going to do what as part of the Safe Streets Act. So obviously it's on school property, we'll go to the schools. If it's in front of the school, which we haven't had so far yet, I think of the ones we've looked at, but that's where that kind of collaboration really is going to be key for these studies, because if it's out somewhere further away in the neighborhood, there's really going to be MCDOT or the municipality working on those areas, because it's really just in their jurisdiction. But having that ongoing collaboration about where there may be either questions about busing or questions about how keep people accessing the school that may have caused an issue with that crash, that's where those kind of quarterly touch points, or more frequently if needed, will be crucial.
Yeah, and to the point of just sharing the reports, or quarterly or whatever time frame. Maybe since you're meeting quarterly, it would be great to formally send something to the council and to the board.
Yeah, so under the Safe Streets Act, for the county reports, they are required to be on the website. So we don't have any up yet. Those are still being reviewed internally. So the ones from the county will be on the website, and we'll be happy to post anything from MCPS as long as it doesn't have anything it's not publicly shareable. We gladly just put those on the website as well.
Great. Wonderful. Any questions from you guys? Okay. MCPD, anything to add on that? You've been participating in them. I'm assuming it's going well. Thank you for sharing that info. And just on the process, so if you guys do the report, you send it to MCPS, and is that how that is happening?
Yes, sir. The review is with Mr. Holland and my lieutenant, so they go through and they pull everything, because an accident report could come from us in the traffic division, or it could come from patrol, obviously. So they get together and figure out which ones are going to meet the criteria and forward that over. So we'll get that to them for their review and whatever action they have, and then we also use it internally for how we're going to focus our enforcement efforts, whether it be the traffic enforcement motors or the district level. So very valuable information, and we really appreciate the coordination.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate this discussion. It's one that's ongoing and really important, and some exciting things happening. One thing I did want to mention, because we had a really cool session a couple weeks ago with community partners around education, which included our independent schools. And one of the things that they raised that I want to raise directly here for the public, but also particularly for MCPD, MCPS, and our Vision Zero, is that when you move to this end-to-end system, please include them in the process of notification of like when stuff is happening. That was a big request of theirs, and there's some follow-up meetings that are going to happen. There was some talk about something that happens in DC where there are notifications. The non-public private schools are notified on a similar system. I know that capability exists. And whether it be construction or obviously we're in a situation where we have a lot of public school students, but we also have tens of thousands of private, some of which your buses are going to. So I think it's even more of a reason to think about that on the front end when you're creating that system and integrating them in. It'll just make it safer for everybody. And obviously a lot of our police departments are involved, either off-duty capacity and other things, to helping these schools with traffic management. And so that's just an issue, and I know that's not your department, but we had your colleague who is involved with a lot of the coordination with the non-publics, who is it Kokinas? No, I can't remember who it is, but
maybe Captain Satinsky?
Captain Satinsky, that's right, he was there. So just something to flag for you as you're doing your RFP for that thing. Yeah, Councilmember Mink, final word.
So, yeah, just one more question on the collision conversations. Is State Highway at the table when there's a state road involved as well?
Yeah, so if the collision occurs on a state road, we refer it to SHA through District 3 and the Office of Traffic and Safety, so they do that follow-up review on their end.
And is that's an isolated conversation, or are you all brought into that conversation as well to be able to coordinate?
If there's something that needs to be worked on, like if there's something that the state can't handle or state needs to extra review, but otherwise we expect them to be able to do the review on their own.
And is that a system that's working, or would it be helpful for them to be more collaborative in the conversation?
I guess I'd say too early to say. It really depends on what the crash looks like, what kind of outcomes would come out of that crash review.
So it sounds like in some situations, it would be helpful for them to be more collaborative with hesitancy.
It's a little too early to say. Okay. We've been sending them the reports; they're reviewing them. It's too early to say because they're still reviewing those reports, and to know what's going to come out of those. Because obviously, the state's budget is very tight, so we don't know what exactly they'll be able to do with the information that they collect.
Okay, well then to be continued. Yeah.
I can provide some context on this as well. This is a conversation across a lot of transportation topics, through the T&E committee, making sure that SHA is an active partner. Mm-hmm. They're operating on a different policy basis often than the county is, and they have first and jurisdiction on not only all state roads, but any intersection of a state road and a county road. Mm-hmm. They have, that whole intersection. So, making sure that we're engaging them as a partner in the conversation we had as through part of the growth and infrastructure policy as well. Making sure that our priorities are aligned with theirs. Through the collision site reviews as established by the Safe Streets Act, the intent for those is to get to the point where MCDOT can implement a constructed improvement. Having a process that where we as the county can be sure that we are studying something that we can then implement. So the focus of those is county roadways. But because that special process for making sure things go to completion was what was created by the Safe Streets Act. Although as Mr. Holland and others have pointed out, any crash on a state roadway is obviously evaluated by SHA through their own processes as well.
Appreciate that. Are there Ms. Edwards or Mr. Lewis, and understanding that there's some of this is a wait and see, but from your perspective now, since we're all here, are there ways in which that you're seeing in which having more communication or collaboration with Shaw around some of these issues would be helpful, or do you expect to see would be helpful?
I mean, I'm a firm believer in collaboration, especially when we kind of share, we kind of intersect in different places. So just like we talked about earlier in terms of any projects that are coming through MCDOT, as we're thinking about different type of special lines and different ways for people to move around the county. And with the charge the council has given us to really think about, but the committee has given us to really think about our two different services, the collaboration is always critical. So again, I think it's always a space and an opportunity, but because the quarterly meetings have not yet started, if I'm correct in saying that, I don't think we can definitively say that there is a definite absence at this moment. We talked about our process, the data sharing. The part that has to happen is actually coming together. So if we could come back to that point, but I do want to make it clear, collaboration is always good. We're all responsible for the children, as well as anyone who's on the road within this county. So everybody really should be a part of the convo.
Great, appreciate it. Glad to have the sentiment out there, and we'll be optimistic. Thanks.
Great way to end. We're all involved in keeping our kids safe, and really appreciate the conversation today. And I promised you it wouldn't be our longest session, so with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.